Hey, Professor Dave here. We're going to build this milk carton thanks to student Marinel who asked the question. So what we're going to do is cover 5 of my key strategies to build this. Even though it looks simple, there's ways we can go about it that makes our job easier and will result in a better model that's also easy to change. That's a really important factor here when building designs is you want to have the ability to change them. So I would always start off by first evaluating profiles. What is the best 1 or 2 views to build curves for? Is it this side? Is it this side? Is it the top? So you have to decide that, and then you start building with curves. And these will be the keys to make stuff editable. You'll see all of that here coming up. Then you make the surfaces. Once the curves are in place, I like to build stuff bigger so I can have the ability to trim it back, and it makes it a little easier and more accurate all at the same time. And we do this with something I call the intersection technique. We'll cover that as well. We're basically splitting 2 surfaces to each other and throwing away the garbage. Now I'm going to turn off this geometry here, and we'll just take a look at all the curves I use. Surprisingly, it's not very many, and many times some of them are just copies or mirrors. So you can see the outside profile here. There's a little bit of an inset there, and then for the 2 top edges, I drew those curves there. Let's put the geometry back on, and you'll see how everything lines up. And that's how I built the carton. We'll do it together. So I'm gonna turn that whole layer off. I'm gonna turn off my text. And I need to go in all 4 views so that we can draw stuff cleanly. I think I'm going to do this from the front viewport. And I also think I'm going to use the grid snap. That might make my job a little bit easier. So turn the grid snap on, and we'll do a polyline so we can draw a series of segments. So here's the polyline. I'm going to start over here. We're going to go up and just making a rough approximate square. That's kind of the roof of the house or the triangle. And I'm just looking at the grid, matching the other side, coming down. And just to make sure I don't snap anywhere else, I'm going to switch over to the perspective view and click on that very first point. Now, whenever you're drawing polylines, if you get back to the beginning, it goes ahead and closes it up and exits the command. So if I click on this entire outline, you will see over here on properties, it is a closed curve. So we're done with that. Let's go back to the front view. I like to look in perspective, but we have a more ortho drawing to do. Let's do that top little flange. And then we're going to draw the inset here. Actually, I should do the inset first. So this is one of my favorite commands since I draw with curves so much, and I'm concerned about thickness. You're going to use the offset command just a tremendous amount of time. So we go to Curve Tools. And here's the offset. So I'm going to select the curves already picked, and you have options in the offset, in or out or both. So it's just using the last number I typed in, but I want to show you a really cool option here. I don't know what the numbers are particularly, so I'm going to click this option up here, through point, and now I can just eyeball it. However, I am snapping to the grid, so a lot of times that needs to go off right away. So I just want that little inset right there. Okay, maybe a little bit thicker, thinner, got it. Now you're probably wondering, yeah, we've got a lot of extra stuff here. Totally fine. Let's just get rid of those 3 lines down below. We do that, since they're joined, with the explode command. So it's pretty much unjoin. And I can just pick these 3 and hit delete. So they're gone. Let's now close that back up. I'm just going to use a basic line segment or single line. Also important, make sure your O snaps are on. So I've got the endpoint. So we snap from there to there. Those are now connected, but not yet joined. So let's just go ahead and select all 3. I'm using Shift, and the shortcut is Control-J. You can also use that little puzzle piece or Edit Menu, Join. So it's many, many different locations. Now we've got to do that vertical flange at the top. So let's just use one of the shape commands. This is really handy. So we go over to Curve Drawing. Again, this is all on the menu. And I'm going to do a basic square. So here is the square or rectangle. And I want to center it, so we'll use the center option. So I can now snap on that endpoint, and I draw out in 2 different directions. So I'm kind of matching that. That looks good. Now you're noticing it's overlapping. No problem. This is where we built things bigger, and we just split or trim them back. So let's use a couple of split commands. So the way this works is we're going to split the first one to the second one, and then just repeat it in reverse. Okay, so here is split. I'm going to split A, right-click to B, right-click to let it know it's done. And then you can just start the command again by hitting right-click, which is to repeat. I'm going to split B to A, right-click. And if this worked, it looks like it's done great up there. I can see that every time it's split into multiple pieces. You can just toss away the excess. So click and delete. Okay, so I'm going to now join this together. When you split, they detach, but they do not get connected. So just a quick Control J, and that should be closed, and the command line says it is. Now, one thing I just want to throw in here is the ability to edit. So let's say this was not quite to your liking. It's very easy to turn on the control points. There is a command for them, or the shortcut on PC is F10. So with all these control points on, we can now just move them very easily. This is the gumball that's been activated, so you can just pull that up. Nothing else gets disturbed at all. Okay, so feel free to tweak and edit stuff. This is what 3D modeling and Rhino is all about. So I'm going to hit the control points off, which is F11 shortcut. And I think we're ready to go in 3D. So I'm going to double click on the viewport, and we'll do most of our work here in perspective. So just double check here. I want to make sure this is all closed. That's all closed. Okay, so we can now pick both of these, Shift, and the command we're looking for is a solid, because we're going to get the extrusion plus the capping. So that will be the solid menu, extrude planar curves, straight. Now, by default, you'll probably have it be just one direction. Notice that I'm on the origin, so I'm trying to keep things organized, and that means I'm going to go both sides. So it's going to go nicely, equally in both directions there. All right, we're getting close here. So we're going to have to build additional geometry and then trim some of this back. I'm going to start off with just doing a simple single line segment. So I'm going to start right here. Now I'm going to start this command in perspective, and I'm going to finish it in another viewport. And the reason I'm starting here is I want to snap to this midpoint. So O snaps are critical. I want to be right on the center of that. Now I can double click on the viewport and finish it in one of the other views. So this looks like on the right side. So I just need an angle for that little flap. Okay, so go back to perspective and you can see what I just did. So it wants to meet that edge, and then I just drew it way bigger. This is one of my strategies. Build things bigger, then trim them back. It works way better and it's less stressful. Okay, so we got this guy here. The other side is symmetrical. So let's just use the transform mirror, and I should be able to snap on the midpoint there. That looks good. I need to define the axis, so that just means go straight up or straight down. You do want to hold the shift key, so it's exactly 90. Okay, let's go back to perspective. We now have 2 lines, and since these 2 lines are in a plane, that means they should be able to extrude them cleanly in the direction we're intending. So let's try that. This is a surface now. We'll be on the surface menu. Extrude curve straight. Don't forget, you'll probably default to one direction. You want to switch it to both sides equals yes. And remember the rule, do not try to line something up exactly, because chances are you may miss it. There's no extra charge for making stuff bigger. Just go way past there. Okay. So if you've been paying attention, you know we're going to do a couple of splits. Let's do the splits. All right, hope you're flexible. Here is the splits. Sorry, bad joke. We're going to split. It's the thing you want to get rid of is the thing you should pick first. So this will be the 2 big surfaces. So I've got them both selected. Right click, And then reading the command line, this is the key. It says, what are the cutting objects? Well, that's the rest of the milk carton. So just select that, right click. And now this will be interesting. A lot of times people will say, two were split into 6. That doesn't make sense. We got this piece, and we got the one inside. There's another location you may not think of. Let's complete the next step, which is when you split things, you toss them. So I'm going to pick this outside guy here and this outside guy there. Those are obviously something that needs to be deleted. Here is the extra surface you may not have realized. So if you can see that, that's the part that's inside. So this is facing the outside, and this surface is facing the outside, and this is kind of trapped in the middle. So we can just delete that. We don't need it. But it made our job so much easier. So I'm going to pick the other one and delete it. Now, you could be done if you're just rendering. This would be all you needed. Boom, done. However, if this were going to be printed, I want to show you the one final step. This cannot be printed right now because it's not closed. Yes, this part is a closed extrusion or poly surface, but these guys are not attached in any way. Again, this could be perfectly fine for a presentation or for rendering. I'm only talking about printing. So let me switch to ghosted view, and you'll see exactly what's going on. Here's the ghost view. And we've got extra stuff in there. It can be tricky to visualize. You can actually go inside if that helps. But I think we can do this operation from the outside. So we're going to do one more split. And we'll do the same exact split command that works with surfaces and curves as long as they overlap or intersect. So there's the split. We're going to split the overall milk carton itself. Right click, and the cutting objects will be the triangle on each end, or left click, and then right click when you're done. Looks like that got split into 2 surfaces. So let's now talk about what got split out. So I'm going to pick this internal piece and slide that guy out. So now you can hopefully see that there was like double walls inside. This is not needed. That was the extra stuff in between from when we built stuff bigger than needed. So we can hit delete. And if we're going to switch back to the shaded view, this might be a little easier. We can pick the end triangle and the end triangle and then the overall carton. So now Control J, or use that puzzle piece shortcut. And this should be completely closed. I can verify that because I looked at the command line, which is very helpful. Or if you go to the properties panel, when it's selected, it should say close solid poly surface. So even if the command was a long time ago, you can just pick on anything in the scene. That's a curve, and it says it's closed. Here's a bunch of surfaces or poly surfaces. It is also closed. So that could now be prototyped because it defines space. There's no openings or what is also called naked edges. Let's go back to the text and recap. Always start off by a couple of sketches for sure, or some research materials, and evaluate the best profiles. So in this case, we did it from the front view. Build with curves, as you've seen. These are the keys for editing, as we did with a top flange. Then with the curves, we make surfaces. I always build stuff bigger if I needed to do some trimming or splitting. And if so, I use the intersection technique. Split A to B, B back to A, and then toss out the excess or the garbage. So those are my favorite strategies I use all the time, and we just applied them to a milk carton in this one example. But you can do almost everything with these 5 simple keys. So peace and 3D.